In high school, I joined the ski club, even though I've never been to the snow. But it looked like fun, and I figured it couldn't really be that hard, right? After spending an entire day of falling down, I finally make it to the end of the bunny slope standing up. And Mr. Meshwart, our faculty advisor, says to me, "You're the most persevering person I've ever met." I take it as a compliment and a challenge. In my 20s, I start running because I have this dog, Molly, who's part Labrador Retriever, Shepherd, and Border Collie. And I train myself to synchronize my breathing in a rhythmic way. And then mentally, I break down the trails that we run on. So I find that I can run hills and distances. I start running 5Ks. I run 10Ks. I run 20Ks. I do half marathons. I do a marathon. And then I challenge myself to do a sprint triathlon, where I learn a couple of things. One, the breathing thing does not work during the swim portion of the race. And two, I do not like swimming in open water. I am a pool girl. I get halfway across the lake and panic. I think I'm going to drown, and I grab onto one of those safety kayaks, and I have to talk myself out of the attack and convince myself to push through and finish the swim. Let's just say I'm really happy when I'm on dry land. And then a few years ago, I gave myself another challenge. Peru, the home of my ancestors. I am going to do an 8-day trek from Choqquequirao to Machu Picchu. I start training. I start climbing the stairs in my office building. About 2 months before I'm about to go on this trip, I bend over to shut the dishwasher door, and I throw my back out. I spent an agonizing week laying flat. And when I get to the orthopedist, he says, "You're going to be fine." I'm going to Peru in 2 months, I tell him. "You're going to be fine." He puts me into intensive physical therapy. I am planking and stretching like I've never done before. And before I know it, I'm landing in Peru. And I feel good. I feel strong. And I know it's going to be a hard hike. And then there's this altitude thing. But I have Inca blood in my veins. I can do this. I've got this. And I think that right up until I walk up the small hill to my hotel, and I am gasping for breath. And this little bit of doubt starts coming into my brain. Fortunately, I have 2 days in Cusco to acclimate. And then I'm at the start of the trek. The first day is about 4.5 hours down to the river. And I'm thinking, hey, this isn't too bad. I got this. And it's the next morning when I figure out what I've really gotten myself into. Switchback trails. Straight down, straight up, all at a 65-degree grade. I do the breathing thing, and it helps to a point. Let's just say I spend a lot of time stopping and admiring the view. The next day, we're in Choqquequirao, the ruins of Choqquequirao. And my ancestors must have been crazy, because these people were living on the sides of these steep mountains, and they built all these really small terraces where they planted things. And I knew then I would have really sucked as an Incan back then. because I do not like terraces. I do not like ledges. I am the girl that you see on the Empire State Building with her back against the wall, even though there's 15 feet in front of me before the drop-off, and there's still safety preventions. I cannot look out over that ledge. And there are these things that we're supposed to walk down to, called the llama walls. Beautiful stone walls where there's these white stones in it. But to get down to these llama walls are these stairways that are so steep you are holding on to the stair above you as you step down. And when we finally got down to this ledge, I became very intimate with those llama walls and the llamas. The next few days are just switchbacks up and down. Except for one day when we were on a road because the rain had washed out the trail. And that wasn't too bad because it was relatively what I called Inca flat, which meant it was only at a 30-degree grade. And the day was going along really well until we came across this landslide, coming down off the mountain across the road, leaving a small trail that looked like the width of a balance beam before it dropped straight down. And when I realized I was going to have to cross that balance beam, I thought I was going to die. The guide ran across it and then turned around and motioned me to come on, and I'm like, okay. I'm trying to breathe, and I'm trying to swallow the lump in my throat. And I get across it. I don't know how. And I realize I've been holding my breath, so I start breathing, and I just keep going because I can't watch anybody behind me going across it, or I will lose it. And I think, okay, I've got past this. This is good. It can't get much worse, right? And we go along, and then we come across this small bridge that's about 3 feet wide, and it's made of these little logs lashed together. And there's a small kind of steady stream coming down it. I get halfway across this bridge, and I slip. And I go down on my hands and knees on the bridge, and I can only see the water rushing under me, and I freeze. I can't move. I'm having a panic attack. And it takes me several minutes to get off of this bridge. And when I get off it, my stomach is lurching, and my knees are weak, and I can barely breathe. And it takes me several miles before I can calm down enough and keep going. And that's when we get to the next water crossing, which doesn't have a bridge. And even though it's a very simple cross, I mean, I've crossed things like this in Connecticut. It cannot be that difficult. It takes me 10 minutes of walking up and down this river to coax myself to cross it. And I finally do. And then we get to the end of the day, and I think it can't get much worse. And then there's the river, 15 feet wide, rolling, rocking, rushing rapidly, where if you fell in a matter of seconds, you'd be miles down the river. And the bridge across it is merely 3 little logs tied together, and it is so narrow you can only sidestep across it. This time, I do not think I'm going to die. I know I'm going to die. And the guide comes up and he grabs my hand, and we start sidestepping across it. And I'm looking at my feet, and that's when he says, "Don't look at the water." Really? That's all I can see. Midway across, you have to step back to continue. After what seems like an eternity, we get to the other side, and I just collapse on the ground. And while I'm sitting there trying to get the shaking under control, Mr. Meshworth pops into my brain. "You're the most persevering person I've ever met." And I think perhaps he's right. Either that or I'm just crazy. And I get myself up and I think, okay, I'm ready for the next challenge. But this time, it needs to include a spa. Thank you.